Hello, happy Wednesday, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you all had a wonderful Memorial Day, by the way. We've got some fun people tonight. We've got some exciting gaming chatter to have. But first, and we might have to rearrange this here, but thank you, Disembodied Voice. Below me, I've got Disembodied Voice helping me out with the stream.
Well, hello there.
On the bottom right, we've got Miss Flo. Flo, what are you painting tonight, girl?
Space Marine stuff. Flesh terrors. I don't remember the name of the vehicles. I've got this one here, and I've also got a tank. So.
Oh, that's a Land Raider.
Doesn't even fit on the screen. That's amazing.
Well, it might when I move.
This isn't the Storm Raptor. It's the other little guys, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what those smaller ones are called now.
Gotcha. Nice. Well, we'll check in on that toward the end of the stream, see how much color you got on it. But with me tonight, we've got some special guests. We got two of them tonight. We've got Mr. DM Blackwall. Thank you for joining us. And Paddy's Parlor Patio Cakes.
Hello.
Two game designers in the house. We've got to spice it up, add some controversy here. I don't know. They get along too well. We'll see what we can do with the end of the stream. But Mr. Blackwall has created the I know you're one of two people who created Horde Wars. And the last time you were on was right after the release of the Advanced Edition, right?
I believe so, yes.
Sweet. And Paddy, you worked on a little bit of that from an artwork perspective.
Yeah, I got to do the map of Valencia. It was a very fun process. First time I've ever done a project like that. And Todd was very graceful and very helpful as both a mentor and somebody who pays me to draw him stuff. So
it's a good gig when you can get it, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
But you've also made your own game. Now, it's a tabletop, not an RPG, right?
Yeah, so Mutants is a tabletop skirmish war game, not a whole lot unlike Necromunda or Mordheim. As a matter of fact, it's somewhere in between with a little bit of like the treasure scooping elements of like Frostgrave. So
Oh, cool.
Should probably play that at some point. By the way, thank you, Disco Barbarian, for the $5 super chat.
Disco Barbarian, dog brothers.
Dog brothers and sword sisters. All right. Sweet. So I know part of, and for everybody who's in the chat, if you follow my Facebook, you can share images of what it is you're working on. I'll try to share that at the end of the show too, so we can all enjoy this community that we love so much. So, Todd, what makes a good game?
What's your question?
What makes a good game?
One that's fun to play, and ideally one that you can finish at some point. There are games actually reach a conclusion point, whether in victory or defeat.
I don't know that I've ever fully finished an RPG. We've had, what was the longest we ran? Well, Voice, like 2 years maybe before our friend group kind of scattered. That sound about right?
Our Iron Kingdom sessions were going on for about 8 months, and I think we won at that. I mean, that we didn't let the scorn take our base, so
that's true. I mean, I've finished a one shot and a couple of shots, and that one, I guess. But I always think of like RPGs being like years long campaigns. My friend Gary, when we were in Valhalla in Utah earlier, he was talking about his friend group. They had been playing for, what did he say? It was like 16 years with the friend group. And they were wrapping up like some massive campaign.
Well, they're kind of wrapping it up just in time for one of their friends to move. And it was completely coincidental too. Like it wasn't wrapping it up because he was moving. It just sort of worked out that way.
Yeah.
I think that's winning. I think he won.
Yeah.
Well,
it's one of the few people that won.
Well, one of the things like in a role-playing game is you often have secondary goals, and being able to finish those is a good measure of progress, or even just enjoyment. Like, did you finish clearing out that giant dungeon next to the town? Did you ever defeat the evil warlord or whatever it might be? Did you slay the dragon that had been eating all the local princesses? Whatever it was.
Do you have the current record for most goblins slayed in a single action?
You may.
Like winning achievements.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I know Ken's got the record for zombies. I think he killed something like 30 in an action.
Nice.
30 zombies in an action. Okay, I just
Yeah.
was sweeping strike, or was he just spinning his axe around or something?
He,
Like blowing?
he used an ability called Hold the Line when a horde of zombies was streaming past him to kill the rest of the party, and it gave him a free attack on each zombie that passed him. He didn't kill all the ones he got to attack, but he got to swing at all of them.
Ultra Trepker?
TTRPGer.
TTO. That would,
Tabletop. Oh, okay, yeah.
that,
I like
that makes more
pronouncing
sense.
it phonetically, though.
I
That's
know.
more
I
fun.
felt obligated to do it. All
I
right,
usually
so-
call him Ultra Papa. I love it when you call me Ultra Papa, if you're into that. You never heard that
Hands in
song?
the air if you are a
You
true
guys-
player.
Yeah, there you go. Flo understands. I knew she would get it.
He says I've been running a monthly campaign for a little over a year now, and it's still going. It seems like it's probably easier to do if it's monthly. I know we were doing bi-weekly because
Mhm.
weekly was just impossible. Like that was going to be too much. Monthly, I feel like you could forget a lot in between. Like I always found bi-weekly to be like a sweet spot for me, but I feel like everyone probably has a little bit of a different take on that. Like Todd, do you have a preferred frequency for meeting up?
Yeah, I mean, if it's an option, I prefer weekly. I think bi-weekly is more practical with trying to coordinate people's schedules and stuff.
I remember when we were playing D&D 4th edition with our friend here. I remember it being every week ended up just like it just felt like it was yesterday. Every time you show up, you're like, didn't we just do this like 2 days ago? And it's like, no, every single week felt a little much for us. So, or I'm sorry, every week felt a little much for us. Every other week ended up being more of a sweet spot.
Yeah.
We're horrible at scheduling and overbook ourselves all the time too. So that's kind of the
There's also that.
Yeah, there's also
aspect.
that.
But you're also right about memory retention. About 2 weeks is about how long it's going to stay fresh in the players' minds, and then they're not going to remember. Most of them will not recall where they left off.
Interesting point.
Longer.
That's fair.
I know that from experience. I run a lot of games right now. I ran a fair amount when I was younger too, but like right now, I think I'm running like, I don't know, maybe 200 games a year.
That's crazy. And you never mix up like who's doing what in what story?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure I do. In fact, I've come up with a method to avoid that, which is I make one of the players recap what just happened.
I thought you were going to say it makes the adventures a little more fun and chaotic.
Because I have messed it up, especially if there's some of the same actual people in different groups. That makes it much harder to keep them straight, at least in your head. With notes, it's okay, but
Right. But I mean, you're having to prepare the campaign and all of that. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about Horde Wars because you're going to be at Nova this August.
yes,
And is it your first time going to Nova?
it is.
Okay. And you'll be running Horde Wars there. So for anybody
Yes.
in attendance, make sure to sign up. I actually did include a link to the tabletop event in the description, the video description. So make sure to get signed up on there so you can catch a game with Todd. And is it Nathan that's also going to be
Yes.
there? Okay.
Yep.
So you,
Yep.
for the literal
Nathan and
game
I-
creators.
Nathan and I are scheduled to run 5 games each, and we would love to fill them with new people who want to try the game, or with customers who live on the East Coast and feel the urge to drive to Washington.
That too. Which driving there, I don't know. Parking sucks, but otherwise it's a great event.
I mean, it's a day trip for you, Todd, right?
Yeah, for us to get there, I think it'll be 12, 14 hours, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
For someone like
Like us
me
going
or
to
for
Valhalla.
Miranda. We have
Oh
the
yeah,
entire
no, you
country
fly.
to travel.
Like there is no option. I'm not driving to Northern Virginia from New Mexico.
If we had like a solid week off or something like that to just
and we could
take
make a
a
whole
full-on
road trip
road
of
trip.
it for sure. That'd be great. Like if you've got a team of people and you want to do that, like LVO is not too far away, or if there's conventions in Colorado, people from here will kind of make a whole trip of it. But that's great if you can get your whole squad together to do that. But yeah, like that's kind of fun too, because people can also sign up as a group for your campaign. How many players to a session?
Should be 6 per session at most. We can run with as few as 2, and if there was one extra person, we could run with 7. That'd be okay. More than that, and I won't have pre-cons for you. I'll have 7 pre-generated characters for you to pick from. Just bring some dice and maybe a pen.
Okay. Maybe I can arm wrestle Aaron into it as well. So then we can.
You should try and get Aaron in the same game.
Well, yeah, no, it's really fun. I love playing RPGs with Aaron because we're very opposite in our approach. Like I'm always the straight man. He's like my chaotic teenage daughter or something, or like he always plays this chaotic character. Now, obviously, it would be a little more serious for you. Actually, what are the character archetypes, I guess, in Horde Wars generally?
Oh, there's quite a few of them. It's we've got 21 different careers, and each player character gets 2 of those careers.
Okay, so that's right, dual classing.
Yeah, and so the sample characters we have are already available. If you buy Horde Wars Advanced or Horde Wars Basic, they're in the back of the book. Same characters as what we bring to conventions. Now, if you want to make your own character, bring a level 1 character following the character creation rules. I'd love to have you bring that in play.
If you play Colgrim Iron Axe, you have to give him an Indian accent because I made a mistake one time.
Yeah,
Colgrim, like canonically, like in the game that Todd runs on his Gilded server, which if you purchase the book, you get access to the Gilded server. Yeah. So I was like, I'll just run one of these pre-gens because I want to test out these pre-gens. And I ran Colgrim and I was trying to give him a Swedish accent, but it came out as Indian. And so everyone just assumed it was Indian. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's that from now on forever.
But you did it twice.
Oh, yeah. No, so I tried to do the thing from Frozen where he's like, yoo-hoo, big summer blowout. And it just came out way wrong. And so now one of the pre-generated characters, if you play Colgrim, he's a dwarf. He's probably one of the best pre-gens. People say that. I don't say that. That's what I hear. But I would say, yeah, you gotta give him an Indian accent, and it's super fun.
Oh my god,
it was hilarious hearing the other players' reaction to that.
JP, you can take the train. Only problem is you have to leave super early on Sunday, like before breakfast early, or spend money on 2 more nights in the hotel to catch the train Tuesday. Oh, because the Amtrak schedule. Yeah, we took the train to Chicago. That was pretty fun. I don't know that I'd want to try and switch trains because the Southwest Chief was nice.
It sucks because we had a lot of fun, and then they're like, okay, we're not going to be in Chicago anymore for Adepticon. And we're like, oh, okay, fine. Oh. I guess we're not taking the train. Although I guess you could take the train to Chicago and then rent a car if there's any parking at the hotel.
Yeah. I mean, it would narrow down the amount of time you would have to rent the car for. And in the end, will it be cheaper than having to Uber absolutely everywhere? Might be comparable, considering how expensive that was.
I remember we did that last time we went to Adepticon, and we spent a lot of money on Uber.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that all came out to. It was pretty equivalent. So, yeah. No, Paul, I had to switch to decaf for tonight. So, but I did have some of your tea earlier. Got my British friend hooking me up with the best teas. That Woodard's Earl Grey is so good. All right, so Horde Wars. I am getting involved in a game. I guess Voice and I both are getting involved in a game. We have not made our characters yet, as Jeremy was so tactfully pointing out.
He's like that, though, isn't he?
We missed Sunday.
I mean, I don't blame him. We were pretty bad.
But we will. Dang it. So cool. What is like the elevator pitch for Horde Wars at this point for somebody who is like, I don't know, I play D&D, I know what D&D is?
It plays faster than D&D. It has greater tactical depth, and in a single book, you get equal or greater content than Wizards of the Coast will sell you in 3 books in real measurable ways, including there's more monsters in our book than you're going to find, monsters and beasts, than you're going to get in a monster manual. There's more unique treasure items than you're going to get in the Dungeon Master's Guide. There are more careers, both individually at 21 compared to about 12 in D&D in the core book, okay. And because you're combining them, way more character options in terms of what character you wind up with, what you actually create. So that, basically. It also is more exciting and is designed for you to fight large numbers of opponents. Fighting a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen enemies is not a problem. The game system is built for it, and it should not slog unless you ignore the rules. we had a one of our British customers ignored the turn order rules and added a good 40 minutes to his game because he chose not to follow them.
Oh no. Well, he just missed them, I take it.
No, he read
Oh
them.
no, he was like, I don't need these.
Yeah.
Americans, what do they know?
Oh, who needs these rules?
And it still played fast. I talked to him afterwards. It still played fast, but I was like, next time, do actually
Do it the way you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. So Horde Wars, like to me, it comes off as sounding like there's a lot of combat in it. Obviously, like Horde Wars, you fight droves and droves of things, like recreating Helm's Deep or something. And I like the idea of fast combat because, I mean, if you've played an RPG, that's always like usually the end of the night. You're like, okay, we got into the fight for the night, and that's the rest of the night. And hopefully we finish it before we have to start our next session.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we've got about a 3-hour sample adventure in the back of the book, as well as I think 41 lead-ins to other adventures and unique locations, including 8 countries in the setting, this kind of thing. But basically, if you have never run an RPG, or if you've run one and you've just never played Horde Wars, we kind of walk you through it. We have a sample adventure to run that should take about 3 hours, maybe 3.5 if you're a little slow. And the reason I mention it is because when you talk about combats, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 or 6 encounters over the course of those 3 hours.
Wow. Are they always combat encounters? Like, is it always fisticuffs? Or
in the starting adventure, yes, but in the sample, but in the other ones, no. We've got like a social problem. We've got like a foreign noblewoman basically having her guards seize an innkeeper and beat him, and then the players can intervene or not, and there's the possibility to get a reward out of it or to get an execution order because you really shouldn't kill a high-ranking noble.
Yeah, and I handed off one of the books to one of my friends that was playing in my Shadow Dark campaign, and even she was reading it. She's like, "I'm just worried that there's a lot of combat." But then I assured her, like, there was one session that I played in. I was playing a halfling thief, and I think it was was I a halfling thief scald? I think that's what
maybe. Yeah.
Or and there was like a witch trial going on, and my character was tasked with like trying to get evidence, and so I like put my cloak on and was role playing, and I think there was like a couple of chances where I could have gotten to a fight, but my halfling like escaped slavery before like there was like a time jump in this ongoing campaign that's running in this gilded server.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because it makes it feel like an MMO because there's a lot of really good chemistry between the players in that gilded server. And so yeah, my character escaped from slavery in the southern country of Andalus, and then there was like the time jump, and I got to play the same character again later on, and he was just like trying to like hide out and hang out low in this town for the past couple of years, and they're like, oh yeah, we hear that you're like good at sneaking around, and so I snuck into like this lady's house, and I found this trap door underneath the rug, and there was like 2/3 of the witch coven down there, like tearing into a cat, and I'm like, and I ran out of there instead of like going in through the fight, and we had like the town with their pitchforks and their torches, and the witches were like, oh, and they disguised themselves as my halfling character, and we had to talk our way through discerning who was the real and who was the fake. So I mean, yeah, I think it's probably Todd does have a lot of strengths as a dungeon master too. But I think with a lot of role-playing games, like the combat's really coming down to the player character choices.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. I know with did you guys both? I know you played the IKRPG, the 2D6 system. Todd, did you ever play that one?
Which one?
It was the Iron Kingdoms campaign from 20 not campaign, but the rule set from 2012. It was a 2d6 set.
No, but Nate really liked it.
Yeah, I bet you Nathan did this one.
Yeah, that one. It was really great and elegant in a lot of ways, but it really, like, the biggest complaint about it was it lacking like social stuff in there. Like, if you wanted to role play, you kind of just had to come up with it from your brain. Like, if you were, you couldn't. There was not really much of a structure to rely on for your character.
Sure.
Is there some of that here for yours for like social stuff? I'm kind of looking through the character sheet.
So I think I have a good example. Now there are a bunch of skills that you can use to solve problems, but we actually have a character who is essentially a social manipulator. Paddy, have you been in a session that has a tavern wench?
Yes, I think we had a tavern wench during the slave escape scenario.
And
there was a point where he was trying to seduce the dragon people guards on the city wall, and it went really well in a way that could have gone very harassmentally in his direction. I was like, no, save me. Anyway.
If you want to
keep finding weird situations, Paddy, I feel like it's a you thing.
No,
well, they did choose to play a slave escape / slave rebellion scenario at that time.
Okay.
But if you want to put it on the screen, I am sharing the starting abilities there for the tavern wench.
Hey.
And hopefully you can read that. I can zoom in a little.
Okay, I think I remember you talking about her a little bit before. So she is a largely social. I don't assume she's boxing anybody.
No, she's good at dodging hits. She's good at distracting and misdirecting other creatures, and she's good at luring you into a dark alley where you can get mugged. That's what she starts good at, and then she continues on with being able to whisper lies to you that you believe are true for a set period of time unless you take damage. So she could like trick you into thinking something is safe that really isn't. Or
isn't that the press ganger model from
I was thinking that
the
too.
Pirates and War Machine? She's got like she's like beckoning you over, like fingering you over, but she has a little club behind her back.
Yeah, she can also like interrogate a character, getting information. She can also give a poison kiss to a character to knock that person out.
Pretty awesome.
At high level. So she doesn't need to get into combat to achieve goals. And you can definitely play this as a guy too. Nate certainly did when he wanted to play Casanova as a character.
Oh, nice.
He combined this with a Blade Master.
But only if it's a male tavern wench.
Yeah, he was.
But he's wearing the same outfit.
Well, that would just be confusing. But if you but like as far as skills go, even just like the art and culture skill, you're talking about you get all kinds of unique cultural information and things that you can play with to make people like you more or less, including like regional variations on different festivals. You can use astronomy as well for social or political manipulation. And then, of course, things like burglary or commerce to barter and appraise and trade, deception.
As you do. Yes.
Yeah, deception for deceiving and misdirecting and disguising yourself. We've got a bunch of these. History and law for knowledge about customs and laws and obviously the past. Influence and intuition to understand motives, influence to persuade people. So we have quite a few different ways that players can try to solve problems in the game world that don't require combat.
I like that.
But that said, journeying outside of civilization is incredibly dangerous, and you may not get a choice about combat if you fail to avoid those encounters. You could have, bandits or goblins or a dragon or who knows attack you on the road.
Dragons attack you on the road? That sounds scary.
that can happen. And so you will want to, if possible, avoid those encounters because they can be quite deadly depending on how the rolls go.
I like to think that dragons have to take the road because they're not sure how to get to where they're going.
I figure they just hang out by roads and such because there's a whole bunch of cattle moving down it constantly.
I mean, that does make sense.
It's like those, what are those like Japanese
Good eating.
restaurants where it's like the food conveyor belt and you just pick it up as
Yeah.
I like to think of it as like a 737 pilot just following the interstates so he doesn't get lost.
Fair enough.
I mean, that would work, I suppose.
That sounds great. Okay, sweet. Yeah, I have to look over the player primer here because it looks like you've got a whole calendar in the world. How long were you working on Horde Wars for, you and Nate?
About 3 to 5 years, depending on how you count. Because I was out of commission with, one, the COVID lockdowns and stuff really slowed us down for about a year because we couldn't do a lot of play testing and stuff. And then I had about half a year when I couldn't get out of bed because my leg got crushed.
Oh,
So
Well, that was
between
awful.
those,
Jesus. Glad you're feeling better.
thanks. I can walk again, just not as well.
Really gave him a leg up on the game design.
Yeah. But
Dum-dum.
but anyway, so about 3.5 years of actual development time, about 5 years total, and we had 100 play testers by the time for basic, and probably about 200 play testers by the time we released advanced.
Wow.
And
That's pretty
so
good feedback then. I mean, was it? Do you think that many really made the difference, or is
I
it too
do.
many?
I do. I think that it really helped refine our writing, the clarity of the rules, and also helped us get rid of some bad ideas.
What were some
that
bad
we
ideas
thought
you
were
got rid
good,
of?
but did not survive contact with enough players.
I wanna hear the bad ideas. What did you get rid of?
Well, so we had a lot of like subsystems or rules to solve specific problems, and that's bad game design actually. It can work if you've just got a problem, but if you keep doing that, you're going to result in a game system that's hard to understand or has weird corner cases to deal with everything. And so we had to kind of rewrite stuff to get a better unity of design.
That's a great point. Yeah, like too many charts, I guess, that you'd be referring to, or weird. You'd get rules bloat. I mean, I guess that kind of is how you get rules bloat with, I mean, modern games right now, certainly in the tabletop arena. So that's an interesting point. Well, thanks for getting rid of the bad rules. That's one of the interesting things too about like an independent, because I don't know much about Wizards of the Coast. So this is me kind of just talking off the cuff here. So just bear with me. But I don't know that their game design cycle goes through that much thought, like that cohesive a thought. Like I feel like it goes through focus groups and play testers, but I think there's more of an imperative to churn out the next product and not really care about.
One of our friends, I don't know if it was exactly the basic expert. I've heard a bunch of other guys say it, but it's like the rules by committee, which is something that you and I are really familiar with when it comes to War Machine with the what do they call that? Where the community at large play tested and came up with the rules for
community integrated development.
Yeah,
maybe the worst thing that ever happened to it, and possibly one of the reasons it died. Yeah,
imagine that. War Machine. They had Privateer Press had maybe like 20 or 30 people on staff that were working on books and actually running production stuff where they were at, and then having hundreds to almost thousands of people trying to come up with rules. It's the same thing with a lot of the Wizards of the Coast books. Now you have like lead writers, and you have guys that write this section of the book and guys that write this section of the book. Then you have guys that are on contract that get paid per word, rather than words. So you end up with rules sections that are written by some guy in Wisconsin getting paid 5 cents a word, who then submits that to an editor who's got to take 7 more of those submissions and then try to make those jive, send that off to a player community and a play testers if they actually do that, and then try to get it all back while being.
Are you talking about core rules writing, or are you talking about writing modules, things like that?
Yeah, core rules writing too.
Huh.
See, I didn't know anybody was still paid per word. That seems easy to use.
No, the core rules stuff I feel like should be more of I almost think of it the way of like a television show has a writer's room.
Yeah.
Where you have everybody there so that they're all kind of on the same page. I would assume that core rules writing would want to follow a similar, sort of approach. I would think, just to make sure that the rule system is as, cohesive. Elegant as possible. Well, yeah, as cohesive or coherent.
Yeah, I don't think you get the Todd. What do they call that? The villager railgun rule break.
Yeah,
that way.
What is that?
Yeah, so I think it was 5th edition D&D. They wrote the rules in such a way that technically you could accelerate something faster than the speed of light if you had a long enough line of peasants.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can hand something as a free action, right? So if everyone is handing stuff as a free action in one window of 6 seconds, they took and this is part of the community at large, the players that are breaking down these numbers and wanting to be like game theorist scientists.
Yeah.
But that's like one of those things.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because since it's all a free action but all in one turn, it's kind of theoretically infinitely doable.
Yeah.
So you can move an object over any amount of distance if you have enough people.
Yes.
Like the light speed fireman carry or fireman what do you call that, where they hand pails to each other?
But I think that's a
relay.
I think that's a less bad example. Now, I'm sure they did a fair amount of work with original 5th edition, because they did a few rounds of playtesting where they were like submitting stuff to playtesters and getting information back. Wizards of the Coast almost never does that, by the way. You can tell, partly because their own employees will tell you that they only really tested around the office, and partly because they will make the kinds of errors you would not make if you had play tested it.
Yeah. I honestly kind of think Privateer fell into that a little bit as well. I know sometimes there's, they'd put out the next book, and every, whatever it was that book introduced, every faction got, the new Warjack or the new Warcaster or the new whatever, everybody got one. And it was just clear from the onset where you're like, all right, this guy's really good. This guy's really powerful. That guy's never going to see the table ever. And you just kind of knew as an experienced player.
Yeah, except for like joke lists or like,
right,
really casual list that's just got the models I like the look of.
Well, I was going to say, there's also some that were like lore characters that you just thought were really neat, and you're like, well, I'll play them because I think they're cool, but I'm not doing myself any favors here. But it's this thing you're saying is like, if you could tell if they had done much play testing, like those rules would not have come out the gate.
Yeah.
And part of that's like the passion of people, like Todd and Nate, you're invested in your game deeply. And then you have play testers who are, who are catching certain obvious things that they're just catching from like a player base, but they're not necessarily like writing your rules, right? So if you have people who, I feel like with bigger companies, you have people who don't care about product as much writing the rules to just be like, nah, I don't know, get it out. We're going to be changing this over in 3 years anyway. Who cares?
Well, it's like they like it well enough, but they're not invested in it. And so they're like, this will be fine. And that's about the level of it's like, this will be fine.
Well, and
instead of, this will destroy everything. Oh my God, I can't do it.
Well, and you need a central person, or maybe a couple people, who actually understand the entire system. They don't have to be in charge, but they have to be able to veto whatever dumb thing that you're currently working on, basically.
Well, and that's why I was comparing it to like a writer's room. You got Joss Whedon ahead of all the guys that were writing for Buffy or Firefly or whatever, right? But it's a central vision that everyone else has their ideas and what they're going to do, but they all have to adhere to a central vision.
Yeah, and that person doesn't seem to have been present for a good chunk of the later stuff for 5th edition and the new 5th edition version. That person does appear to have been present for their early stuff. There was some pretty clear unity of design. Someone was clearly in charge. But this applies to other things too. Like Disney Star Wars, if they had one person who understood the Star Wars lore to tell them no, that would have been enough.
That's a whole different
no.
That's a whole different animal, because I mean, a lot of the studios, they didn't care to begin with. I mean, you had Henry Cavill telling them the Witcher lore, and they're like, we don't care. So they had people there. It's just, are they listening to them?
True.
That's a whole
they need
different
enough
animal.
Authority to say no.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. That's probably the better way to word it. Okay. So tell me a little bit about the world that this takes place in, because I'm kind of peeking at like the primer that that Jeremy and Paddy, you're in it too, right? This game?
Yeah. So do remember that Jeremy is going to be adapting Horde Wars to the very esteemed and well-known Wilderlands versus the base world that Horde Wars is kind of written for.
What is Wilderlands?
I was going to say, do I know Wilderlands?
This would have been a great time to have Jeremy on. Wilderlands has the invincible, the city-state of the invincible overlord. I'll let Todd catch up on that, and then I'll send you guys some stuff on the Discord about that.
Okay. All right.
To answer your question, the base setting is analogous to medieval Europe. Paddy did the map for that. It includes a few human-dominant countries: Mercia, Franconia, Brigmar, Ansburg, and then there are some like barbarian humans called the Easterns, which are, broadly speaking, Picts, actually.
So it's another setting though, like an alternate setting for Horde Wars, basically.
Wilderlands he's talking about the base one right now. The
base one I'm describing is the Horde Wars setting.
Oh, okay.
Wilderlands is a different franchise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don't confuse.
I'm trying to make sure I'm getting them straight. I know what they are.
So we're talking traditional medieval times, like your Ren Fair feel a little bit.
But our orcs are a pretty direct analog to Vikings. They raid up and down the coasts in longships looking for slaves and silver.
Do they look like Lord of the Rings orcs the way you think of them?
No, our orcs are blue-skinned.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, blue-skinned,
They're lucky orcs.
That's right.
And then the island of Carowin is the current homeland of the elves. They are slowly losing a war of attrition against goblins, who are basically outbreeding them.
Okay.
And then on the east, the Easterns are continually trying to reclaim land from the more civilized nations. And in the south, in Andalus, there is the halfling homeland, which was called Rundar, was taken over by these draconic beings, and who worship dragons. And these Dracarans have enslaved almost all the halflings in the world. There are a few who escaped. Yeah, including your old character.
That's right.
There are a few who have escaped north and live in some of the human countries, but the halflings in particular, and the humans to a lesser degree, are very excited about going on crusades to reconquer their homeland.
Is it are they particularly like religious, or is this just like it was our nation they're trying to reclaim?
Well, for the halflings, it was their nation as well. But for the largest monotheistic religion in the setting, their main temple was in Rundar. Okay. So when it fell, that irritated everyone who follows that religion. And they would like the temple restored.
Nobody liked that.
Yeah.
So is it kind of like the equivalent of if someone took over the Vatican?
I think it's closer to like the Jewish temple, in that even Christians back in the day were fighting over it. Like the Templar Knights were named that because they were trying to escort pilgrims to the Temple Mount and from it. And they
Yeah.
thought that they actually had taken over the temple. They were mistaken. They had taken over another building built on the same site. But
Whoops.
yeah,
Their heart was in the right place.
Yeah.
Error. These things happen.
you know, they weren't archaeologists. They were knights. It's fine.
This is
Wow.
fair.
That's fair. That's fair indeed. Okay.
So it's like that. And then we have different things going on politically in the different nations. Brigmar is a lot like the Holy Roman Empire in that it's got a lot of decentralized authority. The ruler has armies and stuff, but really isn't powerful enough to force anyone to do what he wants without help.
Okay.
He needs the support of other rulers in his land. Whereas the city-state of Ansburg is basically a dictatorship with a hereditary title. But the Prince of Ansburg, he controls the entire country. There's no middle level nobility. It's just him, some local lords and knights. That's it. There's no like counts or dukes or barons. And then most of the other countries are a little bit in between there.
Okay. Gotcha. So medieval setting, how is magic approached?
Well, what do you mean?
So I know whenever, like, for people who read that really famous series, Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin was like, I don't like magic. Like, his statement on that is like, he barely had any in it. And, you barely, like, you wait forever to see dragons and all of that. And he really just liked more of the setting and it being more martial and grounded, I guess.
Well, it's like that, or are the street lamps lit with magic?
Right. If
like
you were to look at it on a spectrum, I guess, of like barely anything and Disney or whatever, like everything's magic. Like where do you like to fall? Like, does magic have specific rules or?
Sure. So there are wizards in the setting. 5 of the starting careers are different kinds of wizard, different colored robes.
Yeah, I was seeing that, like blue wizards and such.
Yeah. And there are also like some priests and acolytes and stuff who do more like divine magic, but those ones have like supernatural abilities. But the ones who use magic, the wizards, they do not. They've lost the ability to craft magic items. So artifacts are left over from a lost civilization who did know how to make those things. So they are very coveted and often found in ruins or in wealthy people's estates, or in the hordes of dragons and stuff. That kind of helps make the setting make sense. Why would you go into dungeons? Why would you go into ancient ruins? Why would you go fight dragons? Well, one of the reasons is treasure, irreplaceable treasure that no one can make anymore.
Okay.
And so that was actually, we originally made a whole crafting system, but we realized that characters who got really into crafting were almost always at odds of the rest of the party because they wanted to like stay home and craft while everyone else wanted to go adventure. And we were like, okay, we probably shouldn't have those rules then.
To give you a reason to leave the house.
I mean, it's a
Welcome
real
to
thing.
my life.
Right.
And yeah, so we have like some like fantastical magic, but it's not a high technology world. There's not really magic as technology. I mean, the closest thing you'd get is some of these irreplaceable artifacts that you have to find, and you're rolling on a random table. You may never find a particular one that you're looking for, depending on how successful you are. Or maybe you'll find 2. Who knows?
Have you had much luck with that, Paddy?
I usually play characters that are not totally concerned with actually like finding treasures. I think one of them was even like a hardcore, it belongs in a museum type of guy. And there are rules in Horde Wars for like doing relic hunts for XP rather than normal session XP as well.
Yeah.
So I kind of play to that.
Nice, nice. So do you, I mean, I think I've asked before. I know you've liked to because you can dual class, right? And so you can dual like things you would not think go together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I rolled up a character on Sunday, and I'm not sure how it's gonna go, but I rolled up a gray wizard / archer. So I'm gonna have to fill that one out. We're gonna see how that one goes.
Oh, good. What feature did you pick?
Let's see here. I might have to. I can't remember if I put it on my iPad or if I put it somewhere else. So give me 1 second.
Nice.
Well, I'm asking for a reason, because if you haven't picked it, you should definitely pick up Elemental Blade,
I did see that one.
because that'll let you be an arcane archer.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I might have to go back and switch that because I think I ended up taking the powerful mage one.
Oh, sure. But you can get it for free as long as you give up your cantrip spell.
Ooh, yeah. If I traded like Thunderclap for that,
Yeah.
that would be a pretty good trade. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So and Patty, are we going to be streaming our game?
Yes, I think it's every other Sunday, and it is a bit of a West Marches type game. So I'm not. You'll have to ask more about. You'll have to ask Jeremy some more. But the West Marches style games, there's a little less commitment to showing up every session. Which towards the summer, I've been streaming every Thursday and then twice on Sundays, kind of like like that old joke, even twice on Sundays, because. Early Sunday, I'll have Jeremy on or Savage Brewski and Ray, and we'll be painting miniatures and talking about stuff that's going on specifically with gaming. And then Thursday, I'm drawing and talking about news and gaming or music. I'm literally, I mean, it's called Inkin' and Thinkin', so it's just me.
Yeah, I've seen them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then on Sunday nights, it was. Every Sunday, there was games being played on my channel, whether that was me playing with Kitty and the boys, playing a board game. And then every other Sunday was Jeremy and Brewski and Ray and I, and maybe we had Ultra TTRPGer join us for a session of Tiny D10, which is a super fun game too. But we're trying to make our way like through the backlog of all these RPG games. So... while also showing off on the other Sundays all these wonderful board games that we play as a family. So,
is Bjorn going to be joining for our game?
Yes, if and when he can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he's pretty seasoned with Horde Wars already. He had a pretty badass orc barbarian.
Your son is murderous.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed you having to like stop him from attacking.
Right? Yeah. Like, hold on, not
like,
these.
No, not yet.
Not these goblins.
Not these goblins. We can trade with them. We can barter with them.
Nice. So yes, it will be a live game, Hudson. Once I get my character sorted out. When are we starting? When is this happening?
Next Sunday.
Next Sunday. Okay.
Yeah. Is that this Sunday? Yeah, I think that's this Sunday. Yeah.
I think we're streaming at 1, right, Patty? My time, 1.
Yes. Yeah, that'll be 10 o'clock my time.
June 1st. All right. I'll have a character by then. How hard could it be?
It's actually super easy. It's I mean, you pick a race, you pick your careers, and you're pretty much good to go. I mean, there's like choosing a little bit of extra starting gear, but kind of like how in Iron Kingdoms RPG where you pick one of your careers starting gear.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing. After you pick your 2 careers, you pick one of their starting gears, and then maybe you're picking an extra ability or 2, languages, stuff like that. But
and maybe spending a little, you have a little starting money, you might want to buy an item or 2.
But I mean, it is a super easy. I mean, you could just pick a race and then your 2 careers, and you're pretty much good to go. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And I brought up Bjorn earlier because I know the last time we talked, Todd, I'd asked about kind of the rating for your game and how like kid friendly it was, and it really kind of is very accessible to all ages. It's not like an adult only or any weird stuff.
No, no. You'd want to. to play, you need to basically be literate and able to do basic math. That's the
that might be a little
threshold.
hard for some people nowadays.
Yeah.
What's literate? Like third
Can
grade
you learn
literate?
the game using emojis?
Damn it.
Well, you can always memorize your own character abilities. It'll just mean that you won't know how the rest of the game works.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, Miranda, do you see Jeremy's response here? It says, yes, it's sandbox. You don't have to make it every week. It's a very open world, and I have no plot at all. So that way he doesn't have to get hurt feelings if we like sidestep the
All of
hole
his
in the ground
adventures
Wow.
that leads to an Orgoth temple.
You tell them
That's
not to
great.
complain. That's the lot of a dungeon master, all right?
I marked it on my map. We were going to come back. We haven't gotten back.
Miranda, what kind of character do you want to play?
That's a great question. Normally I play like warrior, bog standard human. But I really wanted to take a look over the class choices because maybe I'll do something different for this. Like archer sounds kind of cool. I don't usually play a magic caster person, so I'm like, well, maybe I'll do something with that. I would like to. I'm gonna be a contrarian here and probably try to like have a character that avoids combat.
Yeah.
just to be that, but hopefully not totally and utterly incapable of it. So more reflective of maybe me in real life.
Okay.
So, we'll see, or I'll do something completely different.
She's a wild card. She can't be guessed.
Well, the other thing is, if you guys have already made your characters, I wouldn't mind doing something that's not what you guys are doing. Like I want to see the variety of all the different classes too. So I don't want to do anything that repeats anyone else's either.
What about you?
With all the
Disembodied
options,
voice?
it's hard to do that.
I tend to roll healer characters or rogues.
Okay.
Those are usually my
Know-it-all
go-tos.
I think you'll find some fun options for that, especially for the rogue. Look at thief, deep delver, and assassin in particular.
Yeah, on the last one, I was a gobber alchemist on our last game, and basically I was kind of just the paragon character.
What are you
So
talking
I was
about,
just helping
Tommy?
you guys around.
You were the guy who who refilled vending machines in our last game.
Oh well, that was DM
I'm just
Scotty's
kidding.
game.
I know.
Hold on. What class can I play that allows me to be friends with a unicorn?
That's a good
Child.
question.
Because I want to be
Probably.
that.
Probably what you're going to want to do there is you're going to want to play a human with a couple specific features. And the reason for that...
What is it, like virgin and like
Yes.
pure heart?
Pure of heart,
Unicorns. Come on.
innocent.
Beastmaster and Swarmlord. Beastmaster, because it'll let you have a pet, not a unicorn, but a pet in general. And that you can use in combat and stuff. And then Swarmlord, because it will let you speak with any beast as though you shared a language. Which is what you're probably going to need if you want to befriend a unicorn. You're probably going to need to talk with it.
I've 100% found my goal then. Okay, let's do it. I'm ready to make my character.
And that's
Cool.
how you win at RPGs.
The other option, of course, would be to capture a unicorn and train it as a steed. There are rules for that.
Don't do that to me, Jeremy. Don't.
Hold on, Miranda, do you ever watch Dungeon Soup? Do you know what that is?
That is familiar. Have I seen that voice? I don't
You
know.
might have seen it on my channel if you'd watch it.
Okay.
Because I've played clips of it. I'll send you links to it later. It's hilarious. But the thing where you're like, oh, you got to be like a virgin. Yeah, it's right up that alley. So I'm gonna send it. You'll love it.
Okay.
I think,
Oh, wait a
I think
minute.
Gnome Stew is the one that we would read.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
Hmm.
JP says you have to be the Mia Sarah class. But incidentally, Legend is
Yes.
a delightful movie. If
Oh.
you haven't seen it,
Love that movie.
I was
Haven't
just
seen
looking
it
at
in
the
so
Blu-ray.
long.
What's that?
Haven't seen it in so long.
Well,
Well, but if you play that class, then you get at least a day off.
One.
Wow,
Now,
nobody
another
got that.
option would
Come
be
on, 80s people, chime in here.
Rough.
Would be to play a brown wizard. If you get to a high enough level, you could actually turn into a unicorn.
You could be your own friend, Miranda.
Yes.
It was pretty awesome in Jumanji too. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I kind of like the first option more. Okay, cool. That gives me stuff to work with. I was just all scrolling through the bestiary and I'm like,
Jeremy got it. Jeremy got it, voice. He got it.
I would maybe consider a huntsman with that, so that you're skilled in the wilderness.
At least somebody's cultured.
indeed.
Thanks, Jeremy.
She was in like 3 movies and then she disappeared. But
She did, and Ridley.
Here we go with movie talk. It's that time of the stream.
It's really hard not. Well, okay, so here's
So-
why. Movies
if we
are
play
stories.
role-playing game, yes.
RPGs are stories. We talk about good stories, and I get that that's something that the players and the GM collaboratively make, because that's what you have. But it's still nice to have a good, strong setting to start against, so you know where to go. I mean, you don't want a blank piece of paper to start your story.
Well, but it kind of depends. I know a lot of players get into, game mechanics and all that, but it's like the only reason I play an RPG is to play in a kind of an interesting and imaginative setting and to engage in a story. Beyond that, I would rather just play a tabletop strategy game, right? If we're not gonna do a story.
And there's a lot of that going on for it in Horde Wars, where it doesn't get as crunchy as Iron Kingdoms, which I don't mind. You guys know me; I like crunchy games. I wrote Mutants to be less crunchy. Originally, it was way crunchier, but yeah, you'll see when you look at the Horde Wars rules that when you do have combat specific special abilities, it does, like, there are ways you could play off of each other's other special rules in order to have some really good crunchy combat too.
See, and it's why I very much liked the IKRPG rules, well, even the War Machine rules for that matter, is because the way they worked inherently told the story of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, oh, okay, well, this is what happened with this. Oh, okay, it's they were able to dodge, or oh, the armor blocked it. So really, you hit them, it just ricocheted off. Like, even just simple stuff like that tells you what happened. And it's always rough especially whenever a game lacks. I mean, we're talking about IKRPG. When a game lacks social skills, then you just have to rely on the DM. I don't know, deciding whether or not what you worked socially or what you did socially is going to work or not. And it's like, well, and it's like, I don't know. I tend to know what I'm capable of in a social situation. And so walking into something being like, okay, I think I can handle this. And the DM just going, no, you can't. Then it's just like, oh, okay, well, cool. It's the same as going in and not knowing, what you're physically capable of in a combat situation. You're like, I don't know, I attack this thing. It's like, okay, well, you're going to die then because you can't beat it. And it's like in most games, whether or not you can handle, I don't know, a white dragon, like in D&D or something. You're like, yeah, no, that thing will kill me. But then, you have games that they don't have any base rules for social situations. You're like, I don't know. Can I go talk to this person? Is this person likely to listen to me? Do I have a social status that they care about? Am I good at talking to people? And they're like, I don't know.
I had a good conversation. Well, I don't know if it was good, but I accidentally did like an engagement bait post on X where I was like, of all the things in RPGs, I hate social skills the most. Like, charisma's the lamest stat to have. And people were like, yeah, well, why don't you just, every time your players want to make a strength check, you arm wrestle them. And I'm like, that's not the same. It's not the same argument. Oh. So I was playing with Jeremy, Ray, and Bjorn for a long time, in more of a gonzo setting, where if they wanted to lie to an NPC, so long as that NPC wasn't like a high stature or like a nemesis type NPC who would just inherently not want to trust the player characters, I just had every NPC believe whatever lie they were told if it didn't lead to their immediate death. You know what I mean? So, like there was a part where Ray, or was Jeremy's character put on like the janitorial outfit for the royal palace, And it's like, there's a lot of janitors around here. Not everyone's going to know everyone. So that, and I think he even had like a smattering of blood on the outfit from where he had like pummeled the crap out of the guy.
Oh, no.
And he was like, the guy was like, "Hey, I don't recognize you." Oh no, I just picked up this shift. I usually work night shift. Oh, do you have blood on you? Yeah, bad nosebleed. I was picking my nose, and then so I was like, "Yeah, I'll buy it." So, makes sense to me.
See, I don't know. I think that goes into who your character is, right? Some people are really good at just improvising, and some people are just really good at lying, to be honest, And it's like being able to add that into your character works, and it's like a charisma skill. You know what I mean? It's that doesn't even necessarily fall into a charisma skill, although. If you do look like me, wow, I've just blanked on how you say her name, Mia Sarah, then you're way more likely to get away with a lie,
right?
And that is a charisma skill, and it's just like some people are just built that way, and others aren't.
And I was one of the cruxes of my discussion there was like, I will give it to you that there are games and wherein the rule, because I like to play my games rules as written. That's just how I like to play.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And there are games where if you take out the charisma rolls, even though I don't like them, it fundamentally breaks down the game because there are so many rules that are predicated on that being available. I'm just saying, for me, it's like, I've run games where I didn't use them. If I wanted a character to intimidate another character, you get a really long way with reaction rolls. And do you guys know what reaction rolls are?
Yeah, I was just about to ask, like, what do you mean by a reaction roll?
These were introduced along in the days of yore, and reaction rolls were like when you're rolling up a random encounter. You can roll up a reaction and it would be like, oh, this thing is you come across a horde of goblins, you know what I mean? And then you roll their reaction roll, and the reaction roll would be like favorable, friendly, apathetic, hostile, hunting.
You're saying like the goblins you encounter
are
would
that have role. This is their disposition currently.
You're basically rolling for a starting attitude.
Yeah. And then from there, going about your social interaction. So there's a lot of things that you can accomplish in a game that doesn't actually require like strict rules for social interaction. Now, again, there are things like in Horde Wars, we're talking about the Femme Fatale capstone ability or some of the like Tavern Wedge's abilities. At that point, yes, that's ingrained in the game, and you want to keep those because that is part of what makes Horde Wars a great game. For Dungeons and Dragons, we were talking earlier where it's like, yeah, some rules don't matter, and there are a lot of rules that either don't matter or just aren't read whatsoever. So I guess they don't matter in the grand scheme of things, but would also, if they were read, would solve a lot of problems that people have. And I just like, I like some of my games where, you already depend on rolls for combat so much because of how cagey and unknowing combat can be, but when it comes to social interactions, if you're gonna lie to the king, he probably has people out there that know better or not, or he's gonna do a trust but verify type action on you.
Yeah.
Regardless, you could tell him the truth, you know what I mean, and he could not believe you, or you could tell him a lie and he has every reason to believe you.
The thing is, I think you need realistically some kind of random number generation element in social encounters in role-playing games for a simple reason, which is that you, the player, do not have perfect knowledge. You actually don't know what the other person's motives are in most cases. You don't know if you bumped into an honest guard who, no matter how much you offer to bribe them, just isn't going to take the bribe.
No, exactly.
You don't know if you've bumped into someone who's actually quite corrupt and is looking for an opportunity to do something evil. You don't have that information, and the game master may or may not have it. depending on what has happened.
Okay.
And so, there needs to be a way to express both your ability to persuade and the opponent's reaction to it.
Yes, I agree. 100%.
And simply game master fiat will feel like they're just always telling you yes or no. And so for an element of fairness, there needs to be some degree of random number generation or other element, because otherwise it will simply be a dictatorship, or it'll feel like it, even if that's not what's actually happening.
No, and that's kind of the point I was making, right? Because like the IKRPG could feel like that very much, because it had absolutely no real mechanics for dealing with social situations. It really was just sort of a skirmish fight simulator in a lot of ways.
Iron Kingdoms, it does have rules for intimidation and deception and such.
It has a few, yeah.
One of the things that I learned over the course of our playthrough, because I think it's one thing to read your rules, and then it's another thing to read your rules actively during play, because I think that's actually how you get like rules mastery or book control. There's an argument over whether or not you should be looking up rules because it slows down the game. I would make the argument that, and maybe it's different because of my time spent as a wargamer. If you're playing a war game, I think the general accepted version of the rules, so long as you're not on like a time or a death clock, you're stopping to look up that rule, because if you're playing a war game, you are playing it competitively. And I think that transfers over a lot when it comes to RPGs. And for anybody who is curious, you could check out our actual and our live plays, and it doesn't take me long to actually reference the rules, whether it's the hard copy, because Iron Kingdoms is missing the core rule book is missing a lot of content. It really,
well, yeah, exactly, and that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's missing a lot of content, but its index is really good. So for the rules that are in there, they're easy to find. But I think you'll find that the amount of time it took me to find the rule that was applicable to the situation would be just as long as having a 5-minute back and forth between the players and the DM versus just finding the answer. And I think that worked out well for our game. I hope it works out well for other people's games with other systems.
I think
but it might not work out for other people's games.
I think that's generally true, though we include instructions for a game master if they can't find a rule after a little bit to just go ahead and make a call and keep the game moving.
Yeah, you should.
I'm fine with that.
And then look it up afterwards.
Yeah,
the dungeon master's prerogative wins out, of course.
When you pass that 5-minute window and people are waiting on their turn, like, come on, dude, I've had a rough week at work. I just want to slay some goblins.
To be clear, we are not saying that there is a rule zero. The game master in Horde Wars is supposed to follow the rules just like the players. Mm-hmm. However, if the players are trying to do a thing that either the rules don't cover, which could happen, people are inventive.
Oh yeah.
Or if they simply cannot find it quickly, then the game master should be empowered to make a decision then and continue on. And if they find the rule later, use the correct rule later.
I'm even a big fan of just the DM just saying, I don't care what the rules are. This is going to be how this goes in a given situation. I'm fine with that too. It's why you have a GM. It's like you should in general follow the rules, but if there's a particular like narrative or something that needs to happen, then do the narrative over the rules.
Yeah, the game master is there to be in large part a referee.
Yes.
To actually enforce the rules. And so I think it's actually very important that they follow them. I think it's a mistake not to. You'll actually get more interesting stories by doing so, at least with a well-built system. I will say, with a not well-built system, you'll get some very odd stories. Yeah. One example of this is how pit traps worked in D&D 3.5 and how the climbing rules worked. I once had a session where we played rules as written, where we had about 2 hours of players constantly falling in and out of the same pit trap. Basically, someone fell in, someone else tried to get them, cascade failure over and over. They'd try to climb out, somebody'd get out, someone would get halfway up, fall back in. It was just a mess. Now that was a bad rule set for that situation. But that could have been designed better. They could have had better mechanics for it.
Right.
it was funny. It was a memorable session, if somewhat, maniacal. Just really focused on one thing. But when they finally got out of the trap, there was great celebration.
Yeah, I imagine there was. So then, because you both have DM'd games, yeah. I mean, how much of a story do you try to come to the game session with? Like, you really want players to have this specific, like, hit these specific touch points in a story versus, I don't know, we'll see what happens.
Well, it depends, right?
Yeah.
Because Paddy, doesn't a one-shot versus a campaign, like, isn't there going to be a pretty big difference in your answer?
Yeah, because I love running one shots. So everything that I'm going to have, and a lot of that comes down to I like scary games or horror one shots, slashers and whodunits. Those type of one shots are my favorite.
I like
and those
you.
do really well. What's that?
I like you.
Yeah. And so those make really well for one shots, and especially if you're doing a whodunit that has clues. You're going to have that stuff prepared, and it's not necessarily because I want you to experience specific story beats so much as I know where the clues are going to be. I know, generally how you're going to find them, and I never lock clues behind a roll. Never do that. Clues can be found if a player describes to me how they're going to find it.
I agree. I actually agree completely with that idea.
When I was running campaigns all the time, I think like the first time that I had a town planned out and a gladiatorial kind of arena, it's really funny because when the newest Dungeons and Dragons movie came out, the scene where they're like in the Colosseum, I was like, I wrote that. But I remember doing all this prep work, and then they ended up going a totally different direction, and I never did that again. I'll prep setting specific stuffs like, what are specific foods and what are their benefits, or what are specific places that they can go to. And those I'll work on because I do like the hobby of like thinking of places, what you'll find in there. And that's why I started writing and publishing my own modules. Yes. But I don't specifically have those things prepared. As a matter of fact, there was a handful of months there where Jeremy and Ray and Bjorn and I were playing, and I started off with one of the pre-written modules, and then after that, everything was off the top of my head until we moved on to the next game.
So that seems really challenging for the game master portion to just be like, can you do that thing? Do I know enough about this world to know if that interaction works?
I don't think unless you're playing in like an established IP, so like the Iron Kingdoms, it's daunting to run a game in the Iron Kingdoms because if you are playing the Iron Kingdoms, it's because you're playing with other people that have played War Machine, more than likely.
Yeah,
so
usually.
When you get something with the lore wrong, people are like, no, hold on. But if you're playing in a world that you're making up, or one that you've just said, okay, well, this is the world, this is the continent, these are the laws, and these are some of like the people's cultures, then your players aren't going to know any more than you will. So
Sure.
there's a lot of misconceived or, pressure that a DM puts on themselves to create something. And then where all of that fails, a game like Todd is working on a wonderful game called Dropship that has some really great random tables that take away the pressure of having to prep for a session. Because you in a couple of minutes right before the session starts or during the session, the way that the game is set up, you are like Colonial Marines, getting a mission brief and you're rolling it up there. Yep. And it doesn't take long to actually prep that. But
that's more of just a dungeon crawl, than a story-driven session, though. Like, that's a different animal.
But you can link them together over the course of a couple of different sessions. Case in point, Jeremy, Ultra TTP, Ultra, Ray, myself, we were playing this game called Tiny D10, and we were using some random tables from one of my other friends. His name is Cyrus Wright, who has a free micro game called Let It Roll. And he has this narrative generator where you roll a D6 a couple of times, and it gives you a place. It gives you what the mission you're doing is, who you might go up against and all of that. And you'll see within 10 minutes of starting these streams, Jeremy, Ray, and I will have come up with the story of why our characters are doing this thing. And then if we were so inclined, all it takes is just taking that little red piece of yarn and like 5 packs of cigarettes and your Charlie Day in the basement. You know what I'm talking about from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He's explaining the meme.
It's the meme with all the cork board and all the yarns lined up.
Connect the dots loosely yourself and you'll have an overarching story.
Yeah. Now, so to answer your question as well, one shots. Yeah, you should have a story ready to go, a particular adventure, and as a player, you should be ready to go on that adventure and not make it a pain in the ass. Why? Because you signed up for a one shot.
Don't be that guy.
Like roller coasters. I mean, how many times have you gone on the same roller coaster that you had gone on before, and you enjoy it, right?
Sure. I mean,
the defensive railroads, it's because the train is going too slow. Make your railroad into a roller coaster, and more people wouldn't look at it as like such a faux pas or such a like a detriment to the game.
But
wait, look, I think I'm a little bit lost on that. Look at what as a faux pas?
Railroads.
Oh, right. Putting your game on rails.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like I've been on, you know what I mean? We've done games that are on rails before. That's not a big deal or an issue. Although even a game on rails, you can kind of make very, very story centric. In fact, putting it on rails kind of does that in a lot of ways.
It does, but it tends to be the story the game master wants to tell, not the story the players are interested in necessarily.
Oh, for sure. If it's on rails, then yeah.
And in a long campaign, those don't tend to work as well.
I
at
agree.
least if you want to keep playing. They do work well for a one shot, sometimes for a short narrative arc, like 3 or 5 sessions that are linked adventures doing this thing. That can work pretty well for that. It doesn't really work well, in my experience, if you want to have a campaign with characters, or at least the ones who survive, that you may be playing for 2 or 3 years. That's not, that style doesn't work well for that. And for that sort of game, or a game where you have, say, 30, 40 players in the same campaign world in different sessions, because that's a thing people will do. Sometimes with one game master across multiple sessions, sometimes with multiple game masters doing stuff in the same world. You'll get kind of a clubhouse play. You'll get you can't do in that sort of thing a sort of railroad. What you have to do instead is have pre-written locations or NPCs who have their own motives and goals and things they want that they aren't getting for whatever reason, for the players to interact with. And the stories are the result of these NPCs or these monsters pursuing their goals and the players pursuing their own. Also, you'll use random tables to add elements to that kind of situation. Alexander McCrease wrote a book that's a little overkill on the topic called Arbiter of Worlds. It is good, but what he said, do 1/3 of that. Don't do all of it. It's too much.
I mean, unless you really want to. This guy, Alexander McCrease, you might know him. He was one of the starters of Zero Punctuation, right, Todd?
I think that's right.
Yeah. So he started Zero Punctuation, and then some
stuff
with
Yahtzee.
And then,
are we thinking the same thing?
Or The Escapist? I'm sorry.
The Escapist. Okay, The Escapist.
Yes. So he's got the game Adventure Conqueror King system, and I mean there's an ongoing joke where it's like there's an axe rule for that. Axe being the condensed version of Adventure Conquer King system.
But his book, Arbiter of Worlds, kind of talks about these ideas that we were just speaking about, and kind of explains the philosophy behind it, and practically how, as a game master, to prepare for a campaign. But again, the thing he told you to do, it's about 3 to 5 times what you actually need to do. He's an over-preparer still. You can do less than he says. You'll be fine.
I mean, if you know the system well enough, you can just kind of fly by the seat of your pants too. You know, like I've done that
but
as
that will have the
RPG.
same. It'll have the same problem as a railroad. Eventually, the players will catch on. Essentially, if everything is random, nothing has any meaning. That's not interesting.
Well, that's not true. I mean, you fly by the seat of your pants. If you're a storyteller, then you're telling a story.
Yeah, I was going to say and Jeremy might be able to attest to this, probably not in chat, but I mean, the adventure that I had my guys go on, it started off with a random roll where it was, they walked into a town. This is a very gonzo world, very sci-fi. I mean, it's like if Monty Python was on Barsoom and Mars. But like they walked into a town and there was supposed to be a public execution going on, but and it was like a side gig in terms of they went into town to go talk to somebody else and just happened to see this going on. And then it eventually led them down this path where it was like, okay, well, we need some money. Where can we get some money? Oh, well, when that, guy escaped the public execution earlier and skipped town, there's a bounty on his head now. And that's all I had to go on. And then so as they're adventuring, as they're trying to catch up to this guy following his footsteps in the desert, I'm as a DM, I'm thinking, okay, well, why would this guy have escaped? And it's because he was the executioner that got slated to execute his wife and then decided to skip town when his son came up because there was like this ongoing thing and he was being tested. So he absconded with his son from town to like this outskirts. And then the players, Jeremy and Ray, had like talked to him in this tribe. And he was like, okay, you're right. Just give me one more night to hang out with my son. And then in the morning, it turns out that he skipped town again. And so Jeremy and Ray were catching up to him in the desert, almost like an old Western kind of like, Duel at Dawn type of thing. And they got to a point where there was two sets of footsteps and Ray followed the one, went over a ridge and got picked up by desert pirates who had made a deal with the escaped executioner, and Jeremy caught up with the escaped executioner, and over the course of their battle summoned a sandworm. Jeremy, and then Jeremy, Jeremy didn't even get eaten by a sandworm. He ended up beheading that guy, looked off into the distance and saw like the silhouette of the little boy on a far off sand dune. And so now I've got like this whole other character that might grow up and try to Inigo Montoya Jeremy's character because he's like, you killed my father.
Well, you're spinning a yarn, right? You're spinning a yarn and paying attention to your audience and saying how it goes. I mean, what is it? Improv comics do it all the time. Lots of people. It's the interest of, again, telling the story and making it interesting. And, if you're like your players suddenly go, okay, we're going to do this. You got to go, all right, I guess that's where we're going.
You got to allow them
what
to
does this
pivot,
do?
right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason people play these games.
Mm-hmm.
The reason people play tabletop role-playing games is you can actually do anything. You can try to do things that rules don't even cover. You can attempt to generate a narrative that would not exist otherwise. Currently, at least, you can't do that in computer games. It's not an option.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm talking about, right? When you fly by the seat of your pants, it's like if you know all the stats for characters, you just have that in the back of your head, and the general rules for how to make this or that happen. Then you're like, okay, I know enough. Let's see what happens. Let's you're kind of armed with that information, and you're just going to kind of go through and again, I think the first thing you said in the show tonight, right, is it's like, well, it's to make sure the players have fun. That's what a dungeon master does. And it's like, all right, so let's start freestyling here. What is it we're doing tonight? It's like, okay, you can just start in the tavern or you can start wherever. But a lot of times it's just all about, all right, let's see where you guys, what hook do you guys find interesting tonight? And then as the storyteller, what am I going to be able to do with that hook?
So I think a game should be fun, but I don't think it's the game master's job to help the players have fun.
Dude,
the players will make
disagree.
their own fun.
No, yeah, there's a lot of burden on the players to help make it fun, because in my many years of GMing, there are players who have more fun stopping other players from having fun than helping make sure that the DM has an easy job of making it fun for everyone. And it is a game of dice, you know what I mean? So
I feel like there's usually one. Do you normally see multiple griefers? Like, do people really gang up on a GM often, or?
Dude,
I mean, you maybe, Patty. I feel like
you talked to Harmony Ginger. She had this one guy that was always commenting in her streams where he was like, "My players tie me up and beat me up." I'm like, "Excuse me, what?" So, I mean, maybe if you're that guy, but
so. I mean, think of Aaron, right? You playing with Aaron. Aaron enjoys just being a ball of chaos and then seeing what happens from his chaotic moves, right? And so it's, for a lot of times, players are there to play their character, right? They're there to participate in a story. Whereas as the dungeon master, you're there to kind of be the, I don't know what you call it, like the creator of this. I don't know. There's enough of a collaboration in a lot of groups that you're not necessarily the sole storyteller, but some players want you to be, you know, and so you always have to be like, it always comes down to the dungeon master as to whether or not this story is getting on the road or not.
But players can definitely hold it up.
Yeah,
again, for sure.
You know, being a referee of the rules, and I think that's a lot of the reason why people, you know, kind of have like this this aversion to wanting to be DMs, because they put a lot of this fake burden on themselves to say, well, I'm not gonna be a good DM if everyone's not having fun. And yeah, you know, if nobody's having fun, you might be doing something wrong. But you know, as a DM, you should be having fun too. You know what I mean? Because that if the DM's having fun, then the players will have fun. A lot of that energy, it can be really symbiotic. If the DM is having fun, then the other players will lean into it.
I agree, except for I think a DM having fun is a different animal than, you know, than the players having fun. I mean, it's like a musician, or say you're a guitar player on a stage. You playing guitar is fun, but for everybody at the concert, listening to the guitar is fun. You know what I mean? Like, I guess people are for different reasons.
Unless you're like Radiohead and people are asking you to play
Creep all the time.
You know, then you're not having fun.
Right? But it's like, well, I don't know. You know, being Radiohead and being asked to just play your popular song that earned you millions of dollars and the fame you have, that's a problem that it's okay to have, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of patience for people with that problem.
That would be like being a professional DM and someone being like, I want to run Tomb of Horrors. And you're just like, man, I've ran Tomb of Horrors like 80 times. Can we please just run Keep on the Borderlands? You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
and it's like, that's the but I mean if you're a professional DM, then I don't know, do your job, I guess. But if you're there playing with your friend, because then you're there for other reasons, you're there for monetary reasons. But you know, if you're there like hanging out with your friends, then you decide what it is you guys want to do. But I do think that it's the DM's responsibility that if the story isn't moving, it's your job to get it moving, right? If the players are kind of like floating around or floundering and they're not sure what to do next, it's kind of your job to pick up that slack and get it going.
It depends. It depends on what you mean. If, for example, they are debating strategy about dealing with a particular problem, let them.
Oh yeah,
that is them interacting with the game.
Yeah. But that's them going. Right? That's them doing stuff. But if you're, you know, just to give the most generic thing, if they're all sitting at a tavern and you're like, okay, now what do you do? And they're like, I order drinks. Okay, now what do you do? I talk to this person. Yeah, okay, now what do you do? It's like, at some point you need to get it going. You know, like clearly they're not spinning the story. You need to get one started.
Sometimes, every once in a while, you'll get a group of players who really wants to play a session just screwing around in town, and they will. When that happens, if you run a game long enough, it'll happen eventually to you. When that happens, let it. The players, usually a few of them, have something that they want to do with their characters that the stuff you were leading in with was not providing. whether it's trying to find a girlfriend for their character in the game world, whether it's trying to get I don't know, trying to buy a pair of oxen because they have a dumb idea of what to do in the dungeon the next time. Whatever thing they're up to, sometimes they've conspired. Sometimes the players will talk ahead and have a different plan than whatever the game master brought.
Oh, that's
Actually,
fine. But that,
Yeah.
what you're describing is the players are guiding the story. They do know what they're doing. I'm talking about when players are just kind of milling about and not actually like they don't have a particular direction. It's like, well, then it's the DM's job to get that direction going.
I try to get them to split up and then get the direction going. That's much funnier.
I was going to say it probably depends a bit on the player's experience too. I mean, you've got somebody who's just been playing for 20 years and likes to be chaos, and then you have people who've just never played an RPG before that kind of just want to know what maybe they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that also theoretically feeds into that. So I assume as a GM you're trying to be flexible to both types of players.
Oh,
There are many players who kind of sit at the table and go, what is the line? Here we are now, entertain us. And so they're like, okay, here's the game. You know, they sit down with no particular notions of what it is they want to do. They're just like, yeah, I'm playing a game. Like what's going on? And it's kind of your job to go, this is what's going on.
One of the things I've enjoyed the most is getting to have people who have never played RPGs before come over and try Horde Wars as their very first RPG. A lot of times, because they hear the name and assume it's a war game.
Got him.
Yeah, got him. But also, sometimes we'll be having an event like at a convention or whatever, and people are like, "Yeah, I'll just sign up for this thing. I don't know what it is. Let me try it." And that's really fun. Or I had a guy whose wife played RPGs for the first time, played Horde Wars as an RPG for the first time at a convention. They've been married for like 25 years. He's been playing RPGs the whole time. She has never tried it.
Okay.
Sounds like my mom.
finally did at a convention and had so much fun. She's been playing for the last year or more. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the really cool things. And I think I've gotten the chance to play with, I'd have to do some math, but probably like something like 500 unique individuals in the last year or two. And that's been really cool. I really enjoy that. And you get all kinds of levels of experience, all kinds of levels of reading comprehension, all kinds of levels of social maturity.
I imagine.
Yeah.
The gaming community is very
to
dynamic in that aspect, right? I mean,
I guess-
all kinds.
But I guess to
Dynamic
bring
word.
it back into that idea of having, needing rules for social interactions, that really is sort of part of it, right? Because, you're like, oh, I'm going to play a barbarian character. I'm, a dude who's like 145 pounds soaking wet, right? Now you get to escape and be a character that you aren't in real life.
Yeah.
And I think that some people are like, yeah, I want to be the silver-tongued devil, right? I want to be the guy who can talk his way out of anything, but I'm socially awkward. I don't know how to do that, which is kind of why I want to play this character, because I just want to enjoy being that guy for a little while since I'm not in real life. And it's sort of why I was talking about like, yeah, you want to have rules that allow people to do it, because a lot of people in the game, tabletop gaming world are not like the most socially eloquent. And so it gives them a chance to be that character for a while.
I don't think that's a prerequisite. And maybe we just need to do another stream that's focusing on this topic. Or maybe I can sum it up really fast. But for the same reason why I don't have my players show me how they're swinging a sword every time they make an attack, I don't make my players act out every social interaction. So what I'm saying is,
I think we're kind of agreeing.
Yeah. So think about wanting to say something in like the third person. Just because you as a person can't say that eloquently doesn't mean that I need to attribute your character's skill with talking to someone to a die roll that I don't need to happen. Right. There's a lot of rules in tabletop role-playing games where it says if the chance of success is so high that a dice roll isn't necessary, then don't roll a die. Which is
just
a lot of
mulligan.
which is a lot of what my argument of not needing social rolls is hinged upon, because I like to leverage, and Jeremy and Ray and I were talking about this, where it's like I also don't like dungeons that are solved with an intelligence roll. I really like when someone writes a good puzzle and I get to figure it out. Now,
but that's the same as like I don't like, I have an adventurer stat, so I don't need to go into the dungeon. I just roll a die to see if I succeeded. Like, you don't need that, but for some people they do want to know that they were the ones that contributed, that they're the ones that actually like talked their way out of this situation, you know? Yeah. And it's and having to have a roll means it was actually difficult, right? I mean, that goes back to Blackwell's kind of approach, right? Where it's like, you do want to follow the rules. Like if you want to be an arbiter of the rules there, then or a referee of the rules there, like you kind of should, right? Because then you know it was something you could have failed at, but instead you succeeded, instead of it just being like, well, I don't know, do you lie to the guy? Yes. Okay, you succeeded at lying to the guy. And it's like, okay. It's like, all right, well, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I was good at that, I guess. It gives you a chance to fail. And when you don't fail, then you're like, sweet, I nailed this, right? And especially if you kind of build your character in a way, it's the same way that people build their characters like, oh, I want to be this dexterity fighter. And I want to always, like, I don't get hit by anything. I just dodge everything. I just, you know what I mean? I'm slippery. Like I get in and out, like, you know, whatever. And some people are like, oh no, I get hit with everything and I don't care because I'm this tanky character that just, like, you can't hurt me. And it's people like that identity. And I think that people like that identity on a social level with their games as well. And so it's why I think being able to set your character up in a way of, this is how I get out of situations. It's the difference between a bluff and a flirt and a intimidate and you know, whereas, you know, if you think about those in real life, which is the way you tend to think about physical combat roles, flirting and intimidating are very different things. One will get you landed in jail. You know what I mean? And so like,
it's flirting.
There's a lot of things, right? There's a lot of things that you could take away. And again, don't misconstrue. Like I think of war game, or I think of role-playing games as sets of skirmish war game sessions that are tied together with structured pretend rules in between.
Yeah, so it's more like a dungeon crawl in that way, where it's like
not even.
It's like the end of an episode of Voltron, where that, you know, they're always going to form the lions and form the blazing sword. You know, it's just like you kind of get into well, you know, we kind of get ourselves into a situation, then we fight our way out of it.
I don't think Paddy agrees with you.
See, and like, so Andrew Fairbanks is like a big part, because I think that there are official Dungeons and Dragons rule sets that say, oh yeah, some DMs like to say, if you act it out, I'll give you a +5 to your social roll. But you never see that. You never see, if you act out your combat, I'm going to give you a plus to your combat roll. And
I'm the same way. I don't think you need to act it out.
The rules being applied a little bit differently. And for the same reason why I don't hide clues behind a roll, I'm not going to hide a social interaction behind a roll. I don't like when players try to seduce the dragon. I think it was funny as a meme for a long time. I think it might have played itself out when people started doing it unironically.
Well, but I mean, you just treat it the same way. You also don't use fireballs to kill a fire golem either, right? They're just immune to your shenanigans. And so like a dragon should be immune to your shenanigans.
Right. Just like a king.
But the rules should have that.
Yeah. Just like a king who would have no reason to believe a liar. You know, let's say you come in and
can believe a liar.
Well, yeah, but you have no reputation. Your character's got 0 reputation, and you stroll into court and you're like, oh, and here's some nonsense about the lady down at the lake, so you should give me some gold.
It worked in Aladdin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had magic. That's different.
Well, but the question is, can you bluff? Are you good enough to bluff a king?
You absolutely can bluff. Absolutely. And you could do so without rolls.
But if you're, every character has the same ability to bluff.
No,
like a barbarian and a bard have the same ability to bluff. And if not, then what sets those apart mechanics wise?
I don't think those have to be separated by mechanics.
I think you're wrong on that, Paddy, but that's okay. We've gotten the idea across. As far as that goes, though, this notion of skill checks for bluffing or for flirting or intimidation or whatever. If you ever really want to freak out a player, when they fail, have the NPC go along with it when the player knows they've failed. Because every once in a while, there's a reason the NPC would actually go along with a lie, even though they know it's a lie, or would actually accept your advances because they want something in return.
Is it because they're just a sucker with no self-esteem?
That could be, or it could be, for example, let's say you had a situation where you're a soldier in the military as the NPC, and you hate your superior officer, and then a player comes up to you with at least some evidence and says your superior officer is a traitor, and here's some evidence. Might you be incentivized to go along with that if there's actual evidence, so that your butt's covered, even though you know he's lying? Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean one of my favorite movies is a movie called Miller's Crossing, and there is a lot of people going along with stuff that, like, the main character is trying to kind of spin this. It's about these essentially kind of gangster houses in the 19 Prohibition era.
20s-ish.
20s, 30s. And so, like, you're seeing some of the characters absolutely believe him and others do not at all. And it's interesting because that has nothing to do with whether or not they go along with what he's saying. So it's exactly like what you're talking about, right? And even when you're watching the movie, you realize there's a character called the Dane that's in there. You realize the Dane doesn't believe a word the main character is saying. And so you know that because he doesn't and he's going along with them, that he's probably the most dangerous person that the main character has to deal with, because he's just like, crap, he's lying to him. And the guy's like, okay, sure, I believe your lie. Let's go. Let's go where you're saying. And you're like, crap. You know, it's like, now what? You know, ball's in your court, dude. And so I agree with you a lot. Like, it is more fun whenever you can start bouncing those around, you know, of like, and it's part of where I go into it, where it's like, okay, roll your dice. Okay. And you roll and you're like, oh, that should be a fail. And you're like, no, he believes you as far as you know. You're like, crap.
Remember in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, in older versions of Dungeons & Dragons, if a thief wanted to sneak or to hide, the dungeon master rolled that secretly behind the screen, and the player wouldn't know. And there's that's a lot of that has a lot to do with balancing out the interaction, right? Because I think earlier one of the topics was brought up was like, well, it's not fair if you know something is happening all the time. Well, correct. Yes, you should be surprised. And like what Todd was saying, where it's like, yeah, the players will pre-plan something and not necessarily always tell the DM. Well, I think that's totally fair for the DM to be running off of the same amount of information about what the party's up to as the party is actually running.
Well, I don't even know that that's a balance issue. I think in a lot of ways, which, I mean, I guess in a lot of ways, I think that role-playing games really should just simulate your experience. And it's like, all right, I'm sneaking, and you're in a shadow, and you see guards over there, and you're like, I hope they don't see. I think I'm doing a good job at sneaking. I don't know if they can see me or not. I think they can't see me. And they're just sitting over there watching this idiot try to sneak around. And they're like, all right, we're going to see what he's up to, but I clearly see him. Meanwhile, you're there thinking you're being sneaky. That's very realistic. That's how real life works. And so I think that rule is actually a really good one in that way, because it's like, oh, well, you don't know what the role is. And it's like, yeah, because you wouldn't know what it is. Proceed with caution. Keep going, buddy.
I think it's really the personality and motives that the character might not know.
Yeah.
They should know what their role was. I think it's it'll encourage lying, really. You should roll all your dice in the open. You shouldn't have secret dice rolls. Why? Because it will incentivize you to lie.
And
that is what actually happens at most tables.
Oh
where
no, I
people
love
do
it. There's a great technique that DMs can use where you're doing something and then they just roll their dice behind the screen and you're like,
Yeah,
the hell was that?
I don't
And
like
they're like,
DM
nothing, don't
screen.
worry about it.
Well, it's the meta
Like-
psyop game
I
against
don't
your
like-
players.
Which is fantastic.
You know, one of my favorite things is like I rolled a check for traps, and maybe they don't get a 1, maybe they don't get a 20, maybe they get like a 12, and then so you tell the other player you find no traps, and maybe you actually mean like because there are no traps, but then the player's like, wait, I find no traps? No, there are no traps. Okay, well, are there traps or are there not?
So
So
that
you
also
find
sounds like
any.
they can super slow down gameplay because then somebody's like, I'm not moving.
Well, going back to talking about roles and having to play your role, and that's part of what makes these games fun. That's why you make sure that you have a thief, and if you don't have a thief in your party, you're going into town and you're finding somebody that can be a thief. Because I also don't like rolling to find traps, just like I don't like rolling to find secret doors. I think if you're a dwarf and you have an aptitude to find secret dwarfs, then I as a DM will tell you like, oh yeah, by the way, you feel a breeze, and then that will trigger the person to be like, okay, well, describe the room to me, and then I'm going to tell you how I interact with objects, which I think is a so much more fulfilling experience than I walk into a room, I check for traps, I roll for traps, or my favorite thing is I walk into a room, I roll to see what I see. You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah, that's dumb.
okay.
But when you get to that describing the interaction, Patty, if the thing they're doing is like smart, what you should be doing in Horde Wars is giving them a circumstance bonus on that roll to search for traps. If they just go in, I rolled a search for traps, no circumstance bonus. They didn't do anything to warrant it. If they actually are careful, right? Like for example, tapping the area ahead of them with a staff to see if there's a pit trap, then yeah, their odds of finding a pit trap and not falling in should be higher. And to answer Jeremy's comment, yes, you absolutely can in Horde Wars crit on a skill check. However, you're not allowed to roll if you can't succeed.
So one of the other things with that, though, is if a player is going to be the guy who just, all right, I roll for all traps, I do all this stuff. It's like, okay, is that what you're going to do with your time? Then as the DM, you introduce a ticking clock. You go, okay, you can go as slow as you want through this, but now that's going to be a consequence, right? Like it should always be trade-offs, like what is it you're going to spend your time doing? Kind of like in real life,
Well, also in games like Zombicide or Cthulhu Death May Die, there's that ramp up of zombie spawns and danger, or in like Cthulhu Death May Die, there's an undetermined but hard timer in terms of you don't know what event you're going to flip at the end of the turn. And so if you're focusing on this one thing and not, being objective oriented and then figuring out what you're doing in Zombicide, a necromancer spawns and all he has to do is walk off the board and it's game over.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So there's
the
definitely
Black Plague variant.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that people who play Dungeons and Dragons or who run RPG games like Horde Wars can learn from. For the same reason why I think I'm really good at running games off the top of my head is because I'm well read. I read a lot of books. I think being able to construct scenarios that include timers and keeping player engagement high instead of focusing on like crumbs on the ground. Playing a lot of board games can help you think about those things.
Well, and that goes back to the idea of you're the DM, you're telling the story. If someone's creeping through the dungeon, being the most careful at every step, well, you use your storytelling skills to start changing the stakes.
Well, actually, though, what you should be doing, as far as that goes, you should be using timers regularly anyway. We show you that in the introductory adventure that you should.
Well, what do you mean timers? Like physical
you should be
timers?
using timers for additional threats joining into a problem. So, for example, if you're making a bunch of noise in a room, there's a certain amount of time before other creatures in the area are going to respond in some way, whether that's guards approaching to see what you're doing. Maybe you're in a castle, whether if you're in a dungeon, perhaps while you're fighting some goblins, The ogre sleeping in the next chamber, if you fight for long enough, is going to wake up and join in. Why? Because he doesn't like you any better than the goblins do, and you woke him up.
You woke him up.
No, and I think we're saying the same thing there. Is that
But
you
you
start
shouldn't be-
introducing additional story elements to.
But you should
To
be
keep
doing
it
that
from being silly.
regularly, not like retroactively adding it in an effort to get the players to be more peppy. You should be designing your adventure with threats that can happen, and where there really are pressed for time due to other things. For example, a lack of food or water. Like if we don't finish the dungeon today, we might not make it home.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. And that goes back to kind of what I was saying before was, a lot of people's problems would be solved if they were better at knowing their rules and knowing that food and rations get used up at this rate. And how many rounds of dungeon exploring are there? How many rounds of wilderness exploring are there before you're out of rations? And if that's not the way that you like to play, then that's cool. That works out too. Bringing it back to one of the one-shot games that I ran with Ultra and Ray and Jeremy was we were running Tiny D10, and we had to go and steal a relic, and we just happened to go into the vampire's lair during the day when they were all asleep, but we got there right before day was running out. And so we had to navigate and find the relic and retrieve and escape before the vampires woke up. And
Yes.
even then, we were rolling so fast before our characters got tired and had to rest. And then the vampires caught up to them by like right before dawn. Actually, it was pretty funny.
Nice.
yeah.
We're wrapping in on 2 hours here, so I think we should
Cool.
probably wind it down a bit. Although the conversation was getting really interesting. I like the. It's interesting the way that you guys have different approaches, obviously, to GMing a little bit. Not wildly different, but a little bit. But to take it back, because Horde Wars is going to be playing at Nova. So I have a link in the video description. So anybody who's going to Nova, sign up for his campaign so you can see what the game's like and bring the kids, because one, Nova's family friendly, and also so is this campaign.
Yes.
I noticed you have a few different kinds on here too for like, what was it?
We do.
Blood sacrifice and goblins and that kind of
So
thing.
Goblin's Attack is an introductory adventure that's pretty straightforward. Paddy's played it, I think, at least once. And basically you're fighting goblins and an ogre. The blood sacrifice one is basically there is a necromancer who is going to perform a sacrifice at midnight. And if you don't stop the necromancer before that, you're going to have a lich instead. So you're on a tight timer to go deal with the problem, or it's a much worse problem. And I think Deuce Vault is the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deuce
And
Vault.
that one is basically the party is a group who has been left to hold a keep while the soldiers are away, and a Dracaran army hits the keep and they have a dragon. You have to you're playing tower defense.
Okay, that's fun. Well, awesome. So,
And
before
we had individual descriptions for each of those, and people didn't seem interested in reading them. So I just had them switch the descriptions yesterday to just a general, hey, come and play with us.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think people. Yeah, if you're just trying out a new game, you're like, I don't need the super details. I'll see it as I play the game.
What is it?
right?
The email rule is that only put one idea in an email because people only read one idea.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that. That's another topic for another time.
Very true. Let's see the people who had posted on the Facebook, by the way. So here's some of the projects that everyone else has been working on tonight. So a lot of folks in the chat here. We've got Andy. He posted, he has a thing for it. It is mooring for House Kalis. So this is for War Machine.
That's one of the new models then, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
It sure is.
Now we were running into the issue of the recognizability between Circle Oboros and
Old Umbry.
Old Umbry. So
Yeah.
which one is that?
That's House Kalis, which would be whatever Retribution is now. It's Dusk House.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
so it's different.
I'm not used to them
elves.
having. Well, I'm not used to having them having elk or reindeer or you know what I mean. Like they've always just had horses, or at least the elves I'm used to.
Yeah, they had horses.
Indeed. And then Dexter has been working on his amazing tables. Oh my gosh. This is so beautiful.
This stuff is always so impressive.
That looks fantastic.
Finally finished the lighthouse for the Trey Parker Blood and Plunder table.
It reminds me of the opening to what was it, Morrowind, where you were getting off on the dock.
Yep.
I never played that game.
It's even got the lighthouse.
It's
Yeah.
Seyda is the name of that town.
Beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous.
That is really cool looking.
It's well
Let me
done.
see if you put in another one. Yeah, here's another shot of the lighthouse and the boats. Even the mat sells that water effect super well.
Yeah.
Jeremy, is that the? I wonder if Jeremy knows. Is that the flame pyre from the Mantic terrain? We'll wait for him to answer.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah, right. There / I guess there. That thing.
Now, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think I painted one of those.
Okay.
I know I painted one of those, but I'm like he can't tell on his phone. I almost think it is. I bet you that flame can come off. It's kind of like molded to around the thing. But that is just top tier. Do you know if he makes these out of like foam and like?
Oh yeah, he's scratch builds all of this stuff. It's incredible. He was showing some of the progress photos where you were seeing like the foam he'd carved stone into and stuff.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Wow, look at that.
Some of Jeremy's
that looks cool.
work here.
Fun.
So Jeremy, is that a knoll?
Knight Paladin.
Oh, okay.
Leonin.
Yes, it is.
Looks
Oh, Leonin? So it's like a cat dude.
Cat dude.
Yeah, he looks.
Man.
Yeah.
I say alone in the world of another cat dude.
God. And then
Millennials, yay!
that's a side view of something.
That's an old orc. Or yeah, Jeremy likes his gray-skinned orcs.
Okay, gotcha. So much. Do you have a preferred miniature set you go to for your games, Todd?
I do. I actually for Horde Wars, I use a lot of WizKids stuff that they made for Pathfinder and for Dungeons and Dragons. And I also go to some really old D&D lines from like 20 years ago that Wizards of the Coast put out themselves. But for the space game, I'm actually using a mixture for because I'm making custom models with kit bashing. I'm using a mixture of Warhammer and HeroClix of all things.
Ah, fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of love that little guy.
Yeah, so this
That's
is
awesome.
Shrimpy,
very
the cook
Malifaux.
hireling.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's very, good job.
He's on a
Jerry.
30 mil base. Is that for IKRPG?
I'm not
that
sure.
base almost looks like a Malifaux sculpted base.
That's what I was gonna say. It reminds me of Malifaux. It reminds me of the Dreamer.
Oh,
The
dude.
old Dreamer model.
Flo, have you been keeping up with the Malifaux news?
No, actually, DJ's been building up an army. He's building up his Lady Justice box. So I should start reading into that again.
You know they're about to release 4th edition, right? They're beta
Yes.
testing the 4th edition.
That I heard.
Yeah.
I
We
love
heard
the
about that
OSL one. Right? Is that OSL or is her hair just dyed green? Is that
It's green hair.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
But
love that model.
It's that anime highlight where they've got the colored highlight on the black.
There you go. Anima Tactics. Alessa Raincross.
That would be a great model for mutants.
And I mentioned in the chat, but Monster Fight Club, I really like their models. They're really detailed, and the
They have good stuff. Yeah.
plastic is good to work with.
Okay. I don't know that I've ever actually messed with it. I've seen their stuff at conventions.
They're doing the Todd, they're doing the Cyberpunk game too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I've got a bunch of their cyberpunk and like
God,
modern
that
miniatures.
freehand. I love the free
Yeah,
hand.
Jerry's freehand work is really good on that last model too. I think that's freehand. checkerboard.
Yeah.
Checkerboard.
Oh, the
and
checkerboard's free.
Stripe
Nice.
and the likes, but
I think so.
very very
Awesome.
Monet looking on this. Watercolor looking.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. And then
Those are myconids, Jerry.
what this model here?
The one on the left is a myconid. The one on the right, she's got kind of like a fungus looking head. I didn't know if she was like a myconid warrior, but her toes and her fingers, kind of throwing me off.
I don't know where they're from. They're really cool looking though.
I love the little mushroom guy.
Of course. You do. Look at the freehand on the bottom though.
Mushroom, all the mushroom dudes are always
Oh yeah, that looks fantastic.
right.
And then Jerry bringing some more Elven
I was
King.
just about to ask if that's what it is. I love the stag painting on his cloak. Look at that.
Yeah,
Right.
Good lord, dude.
that's cool.
Daggerheart, both conversions of Reaper minis, he said.
I'm trying to take at least a day a week to work on my own stuff. I can start doing things like that again because I don't have the opportunity to do stuff like that commission wise.
Yeah,
People
I know
don't
how you
wanna-
feel.
Not
Yeah,
showing up very high resolution, so that's kind of frustrating. But an Ariel 54 millimeter Andrea miniatures, all non-metallic metal.
Wow.
So
Yeah, it's on my list to paint a bust or a mini that's not 28 or 32 millimeter.
I love painting busts. I actually primed one and had it ready to go for Valhalla, and I spent no time on it.
Well, I hope you got a lot of what did we play the last time we were there? We played a lot of Slay Together.
mm-hmm.
And then you guys played that not Alien game.
Nemesis.
Yeah.
I did that this year also, but I brought expansions for it. Instead of playing basically Alien, the board game, you're playing Event Horizon, the board game.
Oh, nice.
Oh wow.
This one looks really cool.
Yeah, I love
His face reminds me of
I like you, Venom.
the Super Mario
I was gonna say
Bros
Venom a
movie.
little
Oh, a
bit too.
Goomba? Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
the Goombas. That is
Like the
exactly
old-
what that is.
Early '90s Super Mario's
Ah.
movie.
So that's a Slaneshi Marine then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
There's
symbol
the
at the
suit
bottom.
marine.
The movie is wonderfully awful.
Yes. I've got him right here. And then this was Rambo.
Nice. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Did not survive the mailing to me very well, but
Aw.
he does look really cool. So that's what he's
That's
supposed
cool.
to look like after I glue him back together.
So wait, is that Rambo or is that Marbo?
Well, I mean, I guess maybe. Well, Marbo, I think's out of the game, so maybe it
Well, he
doesn't have-
says, he says right there, Night Soul Minis Rambo.
yes. There you go.
Yes, legally distinct Rambo.
Yeah.
And then a take on a custodes.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it-
Cool.
Was that like a Hulk Smasher Custodes?
I guess so. Yeah, kind of.
I just
Puppet
delivered a
Floor.
bunch of
The Hulk
those.
Buster.
Yeah, Hulk Buster. That's right.
Is that the end? Is that all my models?
Now, do you guys usually do a lot of decorations on your bases?
We always base our minis. That's always a big deal here.
I always try to do some decoration at the least.
Cork with textured paint is what I do. You can always tell when Kitty does a model because, I mean, Kitty will go all out on her bases.
No.
Ah, dang.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
we a lot of the bases that we use are actually 3D printed,
I love the Death
and we
Note.
might add extra things to them. Client-wise, it really is customer's choice what they
Mhm.
want, whether they want a 3D printed base, whether they want textured base, and the likes. So
Mhm.
Yeah. What about you?
Gary
What's your
mostly
preference?
does. It's like, yeah,
Oh.
those bases look cool.
I was curious. I tend to like very plain bases, but that's because I tend to be using a lot of different maps and terrain.
Yeah.
And so if I make a base too detailed, it just won't match whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I will do it for certain monsters, though. I'll decorate the base, especially if it's like, for example, a dryad or something who's like animating plants around it or something.
Well, yeah, that's even just like practically correct for them.
Well, my Malifaux Kirai crew, I actually printed out some bases because they're river rocks, and so I plan on putting resin in them to make them look like they're standing on water, because I've got a lot of the drowned and the likes that go with those. I just thought adding that water in would be really nice.
Yeah, I always
Never-
had plans
never worked on
for the Gator Men to always just do the deep well bases and then kind of decorate the bottom of it and then put the resin on top of it to make it look like they're all standing in water.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, thank you guys for everyone who shared their progress or their completed works. Gosh, that lighthouse setup is so beautiful.
I'd like to show off a little something I've been working on, and it's going to be coming out on June 1st.
Okay, is that the link you sent me?
So that's the link to the shop. The shirts don't actually hit public release. Only the people that are like my monthly subscribers have access to them right now.
Okay.
But
Do it now.
do it now. Yeah. I ordered some of my proofs, so I'm waiting for those to come in. But this will be one of the few times that I've actually shown off the full t-shirt design.
Okay, so I can share this then.
Yeah, you could share that link, and then I will share. I'll share my screen if you want to make me big here. Oh, why is it backwards?
You gotta tell it to flip it.
Right. Don't mirror. There we go. All right, so this is a shirt that I've been working on, and you guys might actually get it.
Yeah.
So instead of white boy summer, it's white dwarf summer.
Oh my
25.
goodness.
And there's a handsome dwarf enjoying a cold one with an elven babe. And it comes in the tank top. And then it comes in the t-shirt in a couple different colors. So if you don't want to show off your guns, you just want a regular t-shirt. This one comes in black, in a peach color, the teal color, and a cream color. And then you'll see the where's the other picture? There we go. The shirt that he is wearing with the dice and the shark and the palm leaves. If you like that shirt, you can also order that t-shirt.
Oh my goodness.
A little button up.
That's amazing.
What is it? Oh, okay. Those are little dice.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was having a hard time seeing what that was.
yeah, it's
Classy.
multi-tide, and it's 2d6 with a little shark and some palm leaves and some waves. So you can show up to all those summer cons and all your tournaments wearing some sweet.
So now you have the button down. You leave it open with the other shirt printed underneath it, so you're copying him. Yeah,
That's right. So yeah, there'll be can koozies, stickers, all that stuff. So it was fun to draw. I thought it would be perfectly at home with anybody who is a fan of 40K, or maybe you're just into some of like the pop culture with the white boy summer thing. It just made sense, so I drew it.
Okay.
And maybe I'll make it a yearly thing if people like it.
Oh wow, dude, that's awesome.
So
All right, brilliant. Well, Paddy, Todd, I super appreciate you guys being on the show tonight and staying late and chatting about games and I guess what we like about them
And the design thereof.
and
Right.
and to remind everybody that Todd will be at Nova this year, which is at the end of August. So if you're going, sign up and join his game. Do it. I'll be in one of them somehow or another, so we can all play together and it'll be fun. It'll be great.
It'd be great.
So for any of you commenting in the chat, the stream has a few extra minutes on the closing, so I will make sure to reply
By the way,
to your
Miranda?
comments in there. Yes,
I don't know if you noticed DM Blackwall's shirt.
I did notice that. And I also noticed the mug he was drinking out of earlier, and I appreciate that. So yes, we'll have to have you guys back on. Maybe I can get Harmony Ginger. Maybe we can get some other DMs in here, and we can have a real crunchy conversation about who does it right.
It'd be fun. She's working on a project where her players are doing a second round of attempts at playing gods.
Oh, good lord!
Yeah,
I was
dude,
just talking about that in the last one. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, she's got some updates, but I actually have to get going. I haven't eaten dinner yet, and I still need a shower.
Ah, out of here.
I know.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Thank you all. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Barry, cover me. All right, guys, this is it. Copy that. No more sandwiches, Barry. What's wrong with this place? I'm in the west corridor. I'm right outside the generator room. I'm out of bullets. Oh, Barry.